All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider postgame show. This is Ryan Schumpert. I'm Rick Butler, standing here on the field back in Neyland Stadium. It's been a minute since we've been here, but we are happy to be back. Tennessee survives the game against Florida in overtime. Would you call it a thriller? Is that fair to say? It got exciting at the end. It got a little unpredictable.
I don't know. I don't know if I can give it thriller.
Tennessee wins in overtime 23-17 over Florida. Ryan, I know I'm just going to kind of start with this. I know the question that's on most people's minds. Tennessee went ahead and changed the fourth quarter intro song. It's my big takeaway. Do you have any other takeaway? You want to stay on that, or do you want to go in a different direction?
Well, I guess I gotta give my quick thoughts as a hater here. Upgrade, still not a good fourth quarter song, so still not good. Other takeaways, I mean,
let's get to the game.
Yeah, no, it's. I'll just go ahead and start with it right at the front. It's a really weird dichotomy of Tennessee did not play well. A lot of the issues that happened last week persisted. You leave this game, to me, with not feeling really any better about the offense, but at the same time, Tennessee won. In a lot of ways, this felt like the opposite of so many Tennessee-Florida games, where Florida made a lot of mistakes. Obviously, Tennessee does give up the late touchdown there on kind of a busted covers, but 3rd and 18 for a 27-yard touchdown. That was, very Tennessee-ish in this game. But Tennessee does find a way to win in a game they did not play well, in a game that Florida made a ton of mistakes. Tennessee gets it done, and I think they've beaten Florida not enough to not enjoy a win like this. So you leave with the positive. They needed to survive. Alternative to winning ugly, losing was very, very bad. But certainly, game Tennessee didn't ease a lot of the concerns that people had about them either.
Yeah. The game wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination.
Nope.
And there were a lot of times that we'll get into here where Florida could have put more points on the board, but they didn't. A little bit of a bend but don't break mindset from Tennessee's defense. But at the end of the day, it's only the first time since 1990 and 1992 that Tennessee has won back-to-back home game against Florida. I think that's a big deal. We've talked about this game in the past as, oftentimes this is Tennessee's season-defining game. It's early in the year, sort of sets the tone for how Tennessee's going to go. Normally, it might be a week or two earlier than it was, obviously, this time, but in a similar kind of way. Not that Tennessee defined their season with this win, but Tennessee did enough to keep those goals alive. And there's still a lot to be played this season. There's still, obviously, the third Saturday in October is next week, but you give yourself a chance to stay competitive in your race, to stay competitive with those goals. Again, maybe this game wasn't exactly season-defining like it has been in the past, but it's season-saving, it's season-opening, gives you more opportunities down the road that would not have been there if a couple plays did not go Tennessee's way and they did not win this game here in Neyland.
For sure, and we'll talk more about this on the podcast, I'm sure, but not like anybody looks like world beaters in the SEC right now. Alabama, very vulnerable, has a lot of issues. I still don't think Tennessee's going to beat Georgia, but Georgia does not look like as good as they've looked the last few years. So just staying in the hunt and giving yourself chances. It feels like maybe it matters more this year, both with the expanded playoff, but just kind of generally the weaknesses in the SEC as well.
You wrote this in your great article, a couple takeaways after the game today. Josh Heupel scored first half points in his first 43 games at Tennessee.
Yeah.
But now it's back-to-back games without a point in the first half. Tennessee shut out 3-0 again in that first half frame for a second straight game. Josh Heupel said, is the passing game right now where they want it to be? No. Now, does he think it's maybe too far off? He did not. He said he didn't really think that. What's sort of your assessment today of what we saw? I believe Nico Iamaleava, believe he was around the 169 passing yards for the day. No touchdowns, took a couple sacks. What's your impression right now of where Tennessee's at there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting things with the passing game. I mean, it was just to start bad again tonight, and pass protection issues in the first half were a major problem. I mean, I guess the drive two drives they had a good chance to score. I think maybe their first and third drive. First drive, nice script. They go down the field, hit a couple nice pass plays. Nico finally keeps one on a read option, and he fumbles it. And then another drive they got, I think, to like the 35-yard line, 3 straight sacks. So there's a lot of bad. I do feel like it was better tonight than it was against Arkansas. At least it felt like they were closer on a handful of plays. A couple deep balls. Nico overthrows. One, it felt like, not that it's an easy play, but it felt like Chaz Nimrod should have caught on a deep post. So there was more stuff there. It wasn't as bad. So maybe more to build on it. It felt like they were closer. It felt like maybe they found something moving the pocket a lot in the second half too. It felt like Nico was closer there. And the last thing I'll say, just receiver injuries. All three of those receivers Squirrel White was full go. Didn't seem like anything issue. Dante Thornton played a little bit. He actually, had the one catch in overtime. But I'll be interested to see the snap counts tomorrow. I doubt he played 20 snaps in this game. Brew McCoy, who did play a lot, it felt like he was just a decoy out there. It doesn't, it's supposed to be some sort of hand injury. They didn't throw it. They gave him the ball once on a jet sweep. They didn't throw it to him. I'm not sure they did it all. So some weird stuff, it felt like to me, with the injuries. But obviously the passing offense bad, closer than they were last week, but just still not a lot in sync in it. It just felt like on a lot of pass plays, one thing off kept it, from clicking.
Yeah, and some of the things that were talked about from us, from other people in the media this week is what are some other things that Tennessee could do to get Nico Emeliava a little bit more comfortable. I thought they were effective in exactly what you said. A couple of nice plays where he would roll out of the pocket, finds a receiver on the sideline. I feel like in each game this year, there's been a couple of nice sideline throws like that.
Yeah.
I think that's an area that Tennessee continue to try to take advantage of. But you go to the other side of the offense, the ground game. Can still be improved. I think Josh Heupel said that after the game, but Dylan Sampson, 119 yards, 3 touchdowns, including the one that mattered the most in overtime.
2 touchdowns, right?
3 touchdowns. He scored all 3. Scored all 3 in Tennessee. Right. So he was a monster for Tennessee. We said going into this game, not that we were the only ones, but we said going into this game, he's got to be good because Tennessee needs to get this running game going. This is the best way to help a young quarterback who might still be struggling at times, be a little bit inefficient at times. Dylan Sampson continues to prove that he is one of the nation's top running backs. He's certainly one of the conference's top running backs, but he's a leader on this team. He's the guy that they look to when they need to make something happen.
For sure, and I mean, he ran the ball well. I didn't think Tennessee's run game was particularly good. Not that it was awful, but they wasn't able to really fuel a whole lot tonight for Tennessee offensively. But Sampson, I mean, it wasn't like it was, Sampson was a blame for it. A couple of nice runs, obviously the long run, I say long, probably 25-ish, 20 yards for the second touchdown was a big one. But
23.
Yeah, Tennessee needs more from the run game. I thought a little too predictable at times, like a lot of second and long runs. It felt like if there was an incompletion on first down, Tennessee was definitively going to run it on second down. But yeah, I mean, Dylan Sampson's really good. He's the best player on this offense, undoubtedly. You did see him try to get him the ball a little bit more on some swing passes tonight. I think they actually ran 2 of them. Really, both of them got blown up. He did a really good job on one of them to make a man miss and end up running for 6 or 7 yards. So some more creative ways to try to get him involved in the passing game I liked. Though they weren't overly effective either.
It is. First off, I'll say it is a treat to get to watch a game next to Ryan. It's funny to kind of listen to your thought process and your comments, but there were times where in the middle of the game you would kind of predict sort of what Tennessee was going to do, what was going to happen, and often
call me Tony Romo.
Right. Does that make me Jim Nance?
I don't know,
Jim. Jim. That was pretty good. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Your own Tony Romo and Jim Nance here, standing in Neyland Stadium. Final 3 minutes of the third quarter. Felt like that is where the momentum started to swing. Tennessee was not getting a lot of things going. They did not jump out like the Arkansas game where they took a couple of drives right out of the gates at halftime. They needed a little bit of time to get there, but those last 3 minutes of the third quarter, that's when things started changing for Tennessee.
Tennessee felt dead. I mean, to be frank with you.
I think the crowd felt dead at times too, or at least just lackluster.
10-0, and all right, allow me to.
Yeah, digging that memory bank.
I know I got to be the negative person again.
You're gonna get called out.
Yeah, I know I am. The best. It's a fine line to walk. Maybe the biggest thing that happened in the game for Tennessee was when Graham Mertz threw that touchdown pass and his leg gave out and he didn't return to the game. Because I think if Graham Mertz continues to play, Florida wins that game because they were moving the ball with him in the game a lot better than they were with DJ Lagway. But back to your point, and then I'll give us some more positive. Tennessee had to respond there. They absolutely had to do something on that drive, and it really felt like they needed to get a touchdown on that drive. And that's what they did. I think there was a pass to Nimrod for maybe 15 yards, and then a big pass to Chris Brazell, and then from there they ran it in. That jumbo package with some of the defensive linemen in, they ran it on 4th and 1 at the 6, scored the first touchdown. That was huge. And then Lagway's first play, not in for the game because they were doing a normal thing where he played every 3 possessions, but his first play after Mert's injury, throws it in double coverage. Arian Carter makes a nice jumping catch. Felt like Tennessee, it would have been huge for Tennessee. They could have gotten more out of it. It started with the drive in the red zone, but they get 3. They tie up the game. And absolutely, that was a massive, massive swing in the game right there.
No doubt about it. A couple more players I want to talk about before we get
Yeah.
out of here real quick. Obviously, we are going to go jump on to the Rocky Step Incident Press Pass podcast here soon to kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of these conversations. Keenan Peely does go down with an injury. Josh Heupel didn't say anything about it afterwards, but if you had a keen eye either on the field or on social media, you saw that he did return to the field eventually. He had crutches. He had a brace on his knee. We do not know any further information about that. It's obviously a big loss for Tennessee.
Yeah, it was, and I thought this game was maybe a particularly tough game not to have him because Tennessee ran a lot of 4-3 sets because of a lot of 12 personnel, from Florida. Florida motions a lot pre-play, so getting everybody aligned, and then just the fact that with Mertz in the game, Florida likes to throw a lot of stuff underneath, and not that Keenan Peely's great in pass coverage. That's not a strength, but he's still a guy you trust maybe more than some of the backups. So. Doesn't seem good. We'll probably know more tomorrow or Monday at the latest, but hate that for him. And more defense guys you're going to talk about?
Yes. One more thing I'll say on him, though. I said Josh Heupel did not give any kind of update or anything. He did go into a long kind of speech about Keenan.
That didn't seem like it boded well.
And that implied to me that maybe this is long-term. He said, I think his more or less his exact quote was, there's nobody that represents being a volunteer better than Keenan Peely. And I think that Keenan Peely is an extremely stand-up guy. Wish nothing for the best from him, but that did kind of indicate to me that
didn't seem great.
They had an idea of where that was going to go. Hello, James Pierce Jr.
Hello, Tennessee starting defense line.
It is.
So much of Tennessee's strength this season on defense line has been the depth. And certainly guys like Omar Norman Lott, Tyree West, they made plays tonight in the second team. But James Pierce was really good. Obviously, one of the biggest plays of the game when he strips Graham Mertz at the 1 yard line and recovers it.
Yep.
Bryson Easton and Amari Thomas were both really good. I think you could argue the play of the game was what Bryson Easton did, blowing up that. Incredible awareness of the screen pass Florida went to on 2nd and 15, I want to say is what it was in the overtime period. He blows that up for a loss of 5, and then obviously Florida gets some yards back. But at that point, Florida was not going to be able to play for a touchdown. They just had to play to get a shorter field goal. Both those guys I thought played really, really well tonight. And Tennessee's defense again, they're fantastic. We haven't really talked about them much. I'm sure we'll talk about them more in the podcast, but they were really, really good. And one thing I'll say, they were more human in the run game tonight. Not that they were bad. Not like Florida ran all over them, but Florida had more success, I think, than anybody else has running the ball. The pass defense I thought was good. Was a lot better than I expected. They did run some of that more man-to-man coverage, and we talked about that, maybe needing to run more man-to-man, just the way Florida likes to throw the ball short. Jermon McCoy, just phenomenal, and played a great game. Another big, very similar play to the one in Oklahoma on the first drive on 4th down. He breaks it up. They tried him down the field a couple times. Florida on the first play of overtime kind of tried to sneak the tight end out on a rollout. They had 2 guys there. I can't remember what the safety was. They had safety over top, but McCoy was there underneath too. So he was fantastic. Ricky Gibson, I thought, played a good game too. Gave him a couple more completions, but was solid. He made the great play on the 4th and inches that Florida went for, and for some reason ran a jet sweep in the first half. Just as a whole, I thought Tennessee's secondary, not that Florida's just amazing passing attack, but I thought Tennessee's secondary was really strong tonight.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I thought Jermon McCoy, like you said, I know that was a guy that you wanted to mention very much. And then just one more guy I think is worth mentioning. Josh Heupel talked about him for a second during his press conference. That was Amari Thomas, a guy who had a controversial ending to the last game in Arkansas, but a guy who, from everything that we know, is the type of player that comebacks in the next day, straps up his helmet on, and he gets back to work. I thought that he had a big game. He's playing some really good football right now. But sort of to your point, just that defensive line, just kind of solidifying a little bit more together. He's obviously a veteran on it, him and Bryson Easton, but I like the way that he did. I like the way that he performed today.
He played really well. You were down on the field, so we weren't up there watching together. You probably did notice it. Funniest instance of the play tonight, the play right before the screen Easton blew up. So it was 2nd and 10 for Florida in overtime, and penalty flag, and Florida was trying to say that it was going to be the delay a game on defense with the signals where you're trying to draw them off or false start. They call a false start, and Amari Thomas and Bryson Easton standing there like talking to the Florida center, just kept on going, pulling back, because there was an argument between the two as the officials were talking about it on who the penalty was going to be on, and it ended up being on Florida. I thought that was a very, very funny sequences.
That is.
They were kind of pointing backwards, and then they kind of got in unison.
Then they started getting the full motion in.
It was very funny. And then I didn't even think about putting those two things together. Bryson Houston, again, makes an incredible play right after action resumed there.
Final thought on the game, for me at least, to your point earlier. I think the way I talk, it's a very good sing-along song. Maybe not a hype song for the fourth quarter. I want to make sure I play. It did catch me off guard, though. I was like, whoa. But the Garth Brooks thing, the Friends in Low Places, it came after he did his show here a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Same thing with this Morgan Wallen one. I wonder if this kind of been planned for a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's possible. My last thought, unrelated to the music, that was just, to me, the opposite of how all these Tennessee-Florida games go. And heck, it's 12:30. I might have already said this, but it just felt like Florida made so many mistakes and for most of the game outplayed Tennessee. But Tennessee found a way to win, and certainly going to be frustration from this game because Tennessee didn't play particularly well. But they have now 3 wins over Florida since 2004. So I think everybody will enjoy it, and certainly there's reason for celebration. And Josh Heupel now has more wins over Florida than the quick math 4 coaches before him at Tennessee did.
Yep, no doubt about it. Again, we talk about Florida being a season-defining game for Tennessee. We'll see how this season is sort of defined later on, but it certainly keeps Tennessee's season and their goals for the playoff, maybe for a little bit of success in the future, alive as Tennessee welcomes in Alabama next week. 2 teams who struggled to beat an unranked opponent this week. They will meet right here in this building, and we'll see what happens at 3:30 p.m. next Saturday.
Yeah, I think Tennessee will need to be a lot better offensively. I just think Alabama, between Milroe and those receivers, are going to score some points. But certainly an Alabama team that has a lot of flaws, just like Tennessee does. So a lot more on it later in the week.
No doubt about it. This is Ryan Schumpert. I'm Rick Butler. We're going to go up and record the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass podcast right now. Go ahead and find that wherever you find your podcast or on YouTube, wherever you're watching this right now. Otherwise, check out RockyTopInsider.com for all of your Tennessee football news, notes, and coverage. And yes, I promise I'm going to get this microphone fixed before the Alabama game.
I almost laughed.
I know you did.
Yeah,
I know you. It's difficult. And I went back and I watched the one from last week, and it looks weird.
Yeah.
Me just holding this little Tic Tac thing up.
A lot of resilience from you, though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you noticed. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Rocky Top Insider postgame show. Ryan, Rick, see you back for the next one.
I don't know, Jim.